Hello, everybody. I am Hunter Marckwardt, and I am the host for Impactful Thoughts, a podcast that I'll be hosting for the next 12 months for Impact Elite Coaching Group. So I'm super fired up to be here. I have two of my dearest friends. We have Fingers, Lisa Wells. Lisa, if you want to let those things go, thank you. We're making light of rheumatoid arthritis, something that Lisa has been, and she works through it every day. So she's wondering where we're going with this. So there you go.
It's crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah, and then we've got the great Josh Sigman. Josh, how are you?
I'm always good, buddy. Outstanding is the answer right now, right?
Say again.
Outstanding is the answer. Outstanding.
Perfect. And Lisa, I didn't ask because your fingers are wrapped up, but how are you?
I'm good. Staying warm. I had to turn my heater off so I didn't get buzzing in and out, but we'll make it.
Love it. Okay, so the point of these on a going forward basis is, impact the impact leadership team, the impact partners. You have a very extensive, long, I don't know how many. I want to say probably 80 to 100 years of some of the best coaching that I've ever seen with the people that are involved in this. So the goal on these calls on a monthly basis is to give you relevant content based on what's happening in the market. We have a variety of business owners, salespeople, by and large, on this. We like to think of it as everything, no matter whether or not you're in selling loans, selling real estate, selling financial services. I mean, all of this comes around into the same general language and concepts. So we're going to be talking to a bunch of different people, but it should be relatable. Our goal is to make it relatable to everybody that's watching. So knowing that we're at the end of 2024, I know different things that are on my mind. And by the way, I will also say these are not rehearsed. So we're talking off the cuff with some understanding, but not total on I'm going to hit these guys between the eyes with questions that they didn't necessarily know were coming. So my first question, Josh, like if you looked at 2024 compared to, well, let me ask you this. What word would you use to describe 2024?
Reinvention would be a good word. I think that 2024 for many people in many industries was more about trying to remember what we used to do that made us successful and make sure we got back to the basics. I think that a lot of us had to learn new skill sets because the landscape of business has been changing. And so whether that meant for, some old guy like me that never loved social media, embracing social media as an example, or somebody else that became too big for their britches and stopped doing some very basic sales activity that we all know works, going back and redoing that. And also understanding that business partners and business relationships also are changing. And, the new kids on the block, in some cases, are the best kids on the block right now. And that might not be existing referring partners. And so all that to me is the reinvention of business. I still like to remind myself that there's nothing really new in what we do. But there's always got to be some polishing, always got to be some sharpening of the blades, always kind of relooking at the business and what I can do better and tweaking. And that's what this year was for me.
So would you say reinvention, or would you say getting, like, I think of COVID, office space, people getting together in person. Like, do you view it as reinvention, or do you view it as literally like getting back to the basics of?
Maybe a better word is rebirth. Like, I've been baptized twice, as an example. Doesn't mean I wasn't in between, but like recommitting. Yeah. Maybe recommitting is a better word.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's recommitting to businesses. I think that for a lot of people that have been around a long time in any business, that it's not always fun, and it's a grind, and it feels like it shouldn't always be that way. Right.
Yeah.
And so recommitting to a spouse after 20 years might not always be fun every waking moment with a spouse, but you recommit every day for the next day. Right.
Yeah.
And I think business for sure 2024 was very much people needed to recommit and get over whatever wounds they were licking and get on with it.
I like the other thing too that I just thought about talking, like you might have heard stuff the same. You might have heard it 5, 10 different times, but it's like right now it's relevant to where we are today. Like I'm hearing things that I've heard 100 times and I'm like, oh my God, like it's caused me to reread a book that I've read. It's caused, you know what I mean? Like it just, so I agree with you. Lisa, how about you? Word for 2024.
Mine probably isn't as positive as Josh's. The initial word I wrote down was sluggish. And I say that because not that it was a bad year, but it was just like you got a little momentum and then maybe you got adjusted backwards and then you got a little momentum, you got adjusted. But I also think for us in lending, the biggest thing was everything just seemed to take a little bit more time. A lot of clients needed a lot more nurturing. A lot of clients needed a lot more education because, we're really on year 2 of these, quite high interest rates, and affordability is a challenge and all those things. And so really being able to talk through how to tackle those it just took more time. Rewarding, but took more time, and it allowed at least me to lack the momentum that I normally would like to do.
Yeah.
So
I think what you said, like this is a very straight, like I would almost say based on what you explained sluggish being, I would say it's also clarity. Like I think there's more, I think our clients across the board, no matter what industry you're in, like they need clarity. And there's been so much just crap that people don't like getting back to clarity. And sometimes you've got to go slow to go fast. And that's, to me, like that's what you mean by sluggish.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes people don't always work with the people that are the best, but they work with the people that can explain it the best and make them feel the most comfortable. So that clarity is, I think, a really good point to bring up.
Love it. Because I'm interviewing you two, I don't have to tell you what my word of 2024 is because I haven't thought about it. So I'm going to go to, actually, I would say, I mean, the fact of the matter is I would say a cluster. I thought 2024. I mean, if I could, I'm not just going to throw out the F-bomb on our first call together, but
isn't that all entrepreneurs all the time?
Yeah. I mean, it was an absolute cluster, but we're having team meetings tomorrow, which, by the way, if you're not having team meetings, if you're not getting together with your team, you're kind of an idiot. But I mean, we're ending on feeling positive as opposed to negative. But I mean, it was a cluster. It's like at some point you do have to come out of the, what feels like the clouds and go, oh my God, we actually ended up on the other side of this. So I'm going with cluster, but I'm going to jump. I'll ask you two, and then I'll share mine. Word for 2025.
For me?
Yeah. I'll start with Josh.
Resolve. Resolve for sure. Like the resolution to win, like the absolute resolve to do what's required to win. If for no other reason, like, it's just not always fun to do the work and feel average, even when you're not average. I know I'm not average, and my team's not average, and my company's not average, but it doesn't feel like winning. And so redefining the win to what I want, not what I think I want, not what I was told I should do, but redefining what the win is and having the resolve to see it through. Because every time you agree to doing more of anything, it requires a little bit more energy, a little bit more work, or getting rid of some time that you're spending somewhere else. Not necessarily more hours worked, but being more intentional with the hours worked. And so, that's signing up for another year, right? So having the resolve to see it through. Resolve is my word.
Cool. I think when you say resolve too, I think other people probably look at that and say, like, it's not misery loves company. I'm glad that Josh feels that way too. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people in the last 24 months people feel lost. People feel confused. People feel like they've lost their business model. There's all these different things where it's like, there's just some doubt. So I think knowing that, you're on it's not that you had doubt, but I mean, like, you having a plan to not survive, but also thrive in next year, where I think a lot of people are still That's where, to me, it's just crazy. I want to talk about business planning here in a second too, but like people don't have a plan going into 2025. And when you don't have a plan, there's no way to create the word resolve, right?
Yeah, people misconceive that more money solves problems. Like more money is more problems. Like there's more people, there's more employees, there's more companies, there's more. Like losing 6% when you have nothing to lose, you don't lose any money. Losing 6% when you have millions in the bank, you lose a lot of money. So the point is at all levels, there's stress around work and growth and loss, and it doesn't change when you make more and have more. So I'm happy to say, be my company. That's totally fine with me.
Yeah, love it, Lisa.
I feel like Josh is a wordsmith, and I'm like the.
I'll go with you. I mean, yeah, it's like, either way, you're going to feel stupid after he goes. So we can have
let me go first next time. He's got like all these riveting thoughts, and I'm like writing things down like, hey, dummy, you should have thought of that. No, anyways. Yes. I'm a gut person. When you ask the question, and this is something I've thought of before, and it sounds lame, but discipline. I am a feel person. I don't feel like it. I'll do it next time. I'll wing it. And I think that gets you really far for a while. And then you have to start having some discipline to go, I'm going to make that call, even if I'm scared of it. I'm going to do that thing, whether I know exactly what I'm doing or not. And I think for me, just having some really clear-cut discipline around what my standard is on a daily basis for work and home is really something that I'm working on.
So I hate that you deprecated yourself, because you said the exact same thing very eloquently, in my opinion. You're an athlete, right? And the key is doing the work when no one's looking, and that's discipline. And most people were not doing all the work that was required this year or previous years, and that's why they aren't where they were supposed to be. And so having the resolve to see it through is doing the work when no one's looking, because you said you would. And that's discipline. And that you said the exact same thing. I'm super, I love it.
But sometimes doing the work can be discipline, but there are certain things that pay a lot more dividends than other things. And for me, sometimes I can do this. Oh, it's the end of the day. But was that the best needle moving, most impactful work I should have been doing? No.
Yeah, and that's the strategic conversation that you're good at. We're all good at, which is
I have it with myself all the time.
Yeah, every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, we can all fill our calendars. We're all very capable of working 80 hours a week. We've all done it before.
Yeah.
I won't do it ever again, but that's the truth. And so it doesn't mean that the person that started out doing 80 hours a week is making more, has more, is more effectual than the person working 30 hours a week, just on point, dialed in every hour they're actually working, and then going home.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We can fill our time or fill our space with a lot of wasted time. No problem at all.
I had a call earlier today. We were talking about just like if you assuming you take 3 weeks off of work, right? It gives you 1,920 hours in a year of work that's left to be done, right? And then
I love that.
I was actually in another meeting, and like you think about what amount of time you like even with business planning, right? Which I do want to jump into, but I mean, it's like if people don't allocate 2 to 5 hours to go business plan for the next year, meanwhile, you're going to allocate 1,920 hours to not have a clear sense of direction as to what you're going to be doing. You know what I mean? So it's like when you talk about discipline, it's crazy, right? You talk about discipline. Like to me, discipline is delayed gratification, right? Instant gratification is saying, no, I don't feel like doing this. Delayed gratification is I did it. Like I've actually been, I mean, people are probably going to stop listening to this after I say like I've been in the zone for 48 hours, but like I've been crushing it for 48 hours. And my level of confidence, like in what I'm doing, it's like if I could maintain that feeling on an ongoing basis by being disciplined to do the things that I need to do to be successful, right? Like it just feels better. So anyway, this is more you all than me, but my word for 2025 is granularity. I can get too high level when when I talk about the 1,920 hours, when like we're starting to find out like each lead that we have is worth $1,252, right? A pre-approval is worth $4,265. Like, to me, starting to understand the granularity of what all of, whether or not it's time, whether or not it's just the dollars of where you're allocating your time and energy, like that's my big thing, is just I want everything to come back to granularity for 2025. It will allow me to solve more problems. So, Lisa, I want to jump in. I mean, this is for both of you, and just to give you all props. I just did for our entire division, I used your business planning. I used the Impact Elite Coaching business planning form. I think I talked to JJ, and hopefully you guys are okay with this, giving it away for free.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people can have this as a tool. So if you want this tool, please, Josh, who does someone email if they want the tool, if they want the business?
Yeah, so everyone that is watching this podcast, just respond back to the link or the invite, and we'll make sure we get it back to you. But most everyone should have it by now.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa, how does it start? I mean, I know how it starts, but I'm asking you the questions. I mean, I'm lining you up, for God's sakes. I'm trying to,
you gotta give me, Josh, you said it earlier. It's
it's real easy. 5 questions. What's working, what's not working, what we need to add, subtract, and learn.
Yep. So is there a question, or is there a statement in there, Hunter?
I would say, I would say it's a very good foundation for people to consider, right? I mean, it's like, it's just the starting point.
Yeah. So I think, on the business plan, I think the number one thing is you got to look back and see what went well. Where did you have good wins? What didn't go so well? And I think that for us, like, we do a monthly meeting, and that's how we start every monthly meeting. What worked this last month? What didn't work? Because you can solve, especially in teams or with, your, different people that you're working with, you can solve a lot of problems as you go. It's very hard to look back at a year and go, what worked, what didn't work? There's definitely glaring things. Usually if I look back at a year, it's like, what sucked in December and November? Because that's about all I can remember back. But
that's well said.
Kind of know what happened all year and then fixed it along the way. You have a lot less that didn't work and a lot more that did.
Why do you think people never look back? I mean, I equate business planning to New Year's resolutions in business. It's like people, I mean, for the most of the people, granted, most people that look at, right, I don't know what the percentage is, but New Year's resolutions don't work, right? You get motivated for 2 weeks. And
January 23rd is famous for 97% of people can't remember their New Year's resolution.
That's what I'm talking about, right? But most of the time too, that's what business planning is for most people. They get fired up in November and December, and they literally have already forgotten everything, as opposed to tracking it in your tool, right? Mm-hmm. Having it set up for the first, the first Monday after every month to look at what they did and are they tracking, having people that they talk to hold them accountable for measurement. I mean, I guess that's just called coaching, but I mean, like, why don't you think people follow?
I'm going to jump in because I think there's 2 things you said there that you got to resonate over and over again, right? Like, going back to why would Lisa, if she only did business planning in December, only look in November, December? It's because she was in the weeds from January through October, right? Mm-hmm. So for anyone that's a bartender or a server, it's reacting. Like, by definition, when you're supposed to only have 5 tables and the other schmuck didn't show up, so you have 10 tables, and that guy is pissed off because he didn't get his drink fast enough, and she's waiting for the bill, and these 2 people's steak came out rare instead of medium. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you're just reacting all year long. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing we have to do is 1 hour a week, every week, there's got to be time on your calendar to work on your business, not in your business. And that's where what Lisa's saying is right, is stick your head up and look around and say, what's working, right? Mm-hmm. Like, in all this 40 hours it just burned, what did work this way? And Lisa was telling me before this call, and double down on it, right? Mm-hmm. And the flip side is what's not working. In the moment, you can typically identify a decent answer of what's not working and why, so you can have a strategic answer about what you should do about it. And that would be, what would I add or subtract, or what I need to learn because I just suck at that skill set. I need to learn something to fix it moving forward. What isn't wise is to let that problem go on for, what do you say, 1,980 odd
days.
There you go, 1,920 hours before you ever think, well, that was a bad plan in the first place, and I executed on that bad plan for 10 months in a row before I asked the question, what's not working? And so, the 1 hour a week is, I think, the number one reason why people don't see it through. The number two is a lack of a scorecard. Like, I love that Lisa's a feeler, but Lisa the feeler also has a scorecard, right?
Yeah,
and so what I'll tell you that all highly productive individuals, all highly productive entities and companies have in common, there's like a score, and they're trying to win the game. And so, from a individual perspective, from a company perspective, how do you define the win is not a feeling. Because generally when we feel like we're doing well, it's because I just cashed my paycheck last week, which was based on what I did well the last 90 days. But I might have been sucking the last 30 days in leads and deals that are upcoming. And I might be feeling really good about my business because my paycheck looks really good today, right? And so there's always this lag. And right about the time when you're feeling bad, it's like, damn, I sucked because my paycheck last week was bad. But if I look at the last 90 days of data, the data might say more leads, more relationships, more deals, big, huge freaking pipeline coming. You did good. And so removing the emotion through a scorecard is important for us crazy entrepreneurs. But think about the teams, because now we're telling our teams that things are going poorly when they feel like they're doing good, and vice versa. But the team has nothing to celebrate on. So having a scorecard that is specific to every single person on the team, their top 3 job duties, with metrics in order of importance that is shared on a weekly basis, heads that off at the pass. So here's the scorecard, what's going well as a team, and then the hour at the week to review what's working, what's not. So as the leader, we can strategically make changes. I think those are the only 2 things that are missing from most people's businesses, which is the reason why they don't even remember the resolution 3 weeks later. That's my answer.
Which, by the way, goes back to granularity. Like, a granularity to me is a scorecard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Like, how do you define the win? Like, exactly. How do you define the win?
Right.
What exactly is my job? What exactly is your job? Exactly. And did I do my job or not?
So how much time do we have on these?
Hunter, I'm all yours, buddy.
Okay. So what I would challenge everyone with, and again, I'm not paid for this. I'm just like, these are my friends. I'm doing them a favor by doing it. I can tell you though, like, part of, like, your favor to me is this form. And I'm not trying to get everyone to fill it out, except that if you're into business planning, you need to fill it out. And the one piece of advice that I can give you is me being about an hour into the form on page 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 is when I want to stop working on it. And when that is the absolute most important time to actually hunker down, take the extra couple of hours to think through it and get that stuff filled out. So just as a side note, the other thing I want to bring up, that we don't have that much time, I don't think, but Josh, you brought up something. We talked for 5 minutes before the call started, and Josh brought up an exercise that he did today with 20 business people, and it's boring. Right. And I think boring is, I think on the sales side, I'm going to steal your thunder, but then I'm going to have you start on the sales side. And we talk about granularity. It's easy to say, if I make 100 phone calls, I might convert 10 opportunities. I close 1. That's how the things work, right? Obviously, the more you can narrow that down, the better. It's harder on the operation side, right? It's harder. It's boringer. It's like, I don't know what
boringer.
I don't know if boringer is the right word.
The other wordsmith on the call.
Whatever. So
make them up as you go. We're good.
Explain what you discussed today, because I would have been, except I wouldn't have tried to BS my way through it. I run a pretty tight business, and I still wouldn't have. I've got it documented, but I don't have it reviewed. So
it was a simple question. So, I think a lot of people at this point, at least most people receiving this podcast or on the podcast, would all say they've got a plan for next year, or they've worked through at least the impact plan for next year, right? The question is, did you bother sharing with the team? Start there. And if you're crystal clear with what you're supposed to do, and you have an assistant or 3 or 10 or a team of 100, are they all individually on the right path with top 3 job duties in order of importance with metrics that are all in parallel with the goals that you have in mind. So here's what I mean by that. I was in front of 20 business partners this morning, and we were just talking about they all were team leads. They all had varying size teams, went up to 25. And I just said, hey, I said, do all of you guys have top 3 job duties with metrics for all of your teammates? Every single teammate individually, top 3 job duties with metrics, yes or no? And everyone said no, except for 2 tried to BS it. And so the 2 that said, yeah, we do. I said, awesome, that's fantastic. Can we go ahead and pull out your phone and do a speakerphone call to your team? And let's ask your team, can they list off their top 3 job duties in order of importance with metrics, and they be identical to what you just said? And of course, they backed up and they didn't let us make that phone call, because the truth is that is a big missing element. And so if you think about it, like I think I used the analogy, Hunter, of like a dog sled team, right? Yep. So we've got all these dogs pulling ideally in the same direction, but they're all dogs, right? In the dog sled, they're all dogs, and they all have the minds of their own too. And what you don't want to do is have, if you've got a team of 10, you have 7 going generally in the same direction, but 3 are trying to pull off this way and that way, all generally going northbound, but some are kind of northeast and some are kind of northwest. What it creates is inefficiency within the team, and the inefficiency is going to make you not go as far with the same team, right? So what do we end up doing? We think we have to get more team because we don't have the power behind it to get us where we want to go as fast as we want to do. So all of a sudden we hire 2 or 3 more people, but we didn't give them their top 3 job duties in order of importance with metrics. That was crystal clear. It's in alignment with what I want, and they're crystal clear about why it's important to the entire team. And so now we have the new people are going also in kind of a star fashion, creating more inefficiencies. And so I've been very guilty of this. This is why it stands out to me like a sore thumb when I see other people starting to build teams. Like, guys, stop everything. Just do that. If you have one thing that you haven't done, if this is resonating with you before the end of the year, like stop in at your next team meeting with your team of 2 or your team of 10, do that exercise.
So, hey, Josh, I'm gonna stop you, because so many people, including me, by the way, I'm sure including Lisa, it's like, it's okay to not have all the answers, right? Like, it's okay. Yeah. I'm sure there's plenty of people watching this that are going, I don't know what their roles and responsibilities and metrics are supposed to be. So with that, and this could be a 10-hour call. Where would you suggest that someone even begins when you look at it? I was the leader in a meeting on Monday, and I flat out said to everybody, I'm like, guys, I failed at this, and I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but we're all getting through this together, right? Yep. I mean, it's like the leader doesn't always have the answers, and I think the ability sometimes, or the humility, whatever you want to call it, to be able to say, I don't know how to do this, but I mean, how do you suggest someone solves for roles and responsibilities? Yeah, so I love it. The first thing is that there's got to be clear direction, and that's provided by you, the leader, right? The leader says, I want to do X, or our group's going to do this next year, and here's the why, and this is what's in it for you. So there's got to be like a goal. Yes, it's better to come up with the group, like, hey, what do you guys want to shoot for? Because if it's their idea, it's better for everybody. Like, they're more likely to be bought in. Yes, that's important. But once it gets there, especially in this world of remote employees, I'm just letting you know, if there's not a top 3 job duty that you're clear of or they're clear of and they're remote, they're definitely not working 40 hours. Because there should be clarity about exactly what they're doing for 40 hours if you're paying them for 40 hours. Exactly. I got to just stop, because I'm so into reversing the lens for everybody listening. If you don't know what their roles and responsibilities are, how in God's name do they know what their roles and responsibilities are? Right? Yeah. Like, it's a big miss. And so, I started paying attention when I had some teammates that are no longer teammates, because a lot of trust goes a long way. But when leads go down, intuitively there's less to do. And if we're not actually spot checking and being really focused on, hey, above everything else, this is number 1, this number 2, this number 3. Did you get those things done? We're missing the boat, right? So the question being, how do you start it? Well, the real answer is that anyone that you hire for any team, it's meant to create leverage for the higher dollar productive activities to be done by the higher earners, right? Like, that's the basic answer. If my job is to make your rain measured by 100 leads a month as an easy number for a loan officer, just a loan officer, right? If my number 1 job responsibility is to make your rain measured by 100 leads a month, then
anything that's preventing me from getting those 100 leads a month that I could pay less than my hourly rate, I should pay for somebody else to do, right? So now I have this person that I would have specifically take certain things off of my calendar that I was doing, so I know what it was, how much time it typically takes, how fast it should take to get it done, and what it looks like to get it done well. And I would assign that as a job role. So for example, my first hire ever, all I did was for 2 weeks in 30-minute increments, I tracked every half hour on the half hour, exactly what it was that I did during that time. And I just highlighted red time, green time, dollar productive activities, non-dollar productive activities. Then I wanted to remove at least 50% of my calendar, all the red time, so that I could have more green time, right? So it was very clear. Emails was number one, right? So I didn't want to deal with emails anymore. So number one responsibility was to manage the email, return emails promptly, and if there was any questions, to make sure that I had 2 times a day to help them respond better. So, pop quiz, if you email me, there's a 98% chance that me responding is not me responding for the last 10 years, just letting you know. Okay. So that would be an example. So if you break it down to a salesperson versus an operator, somebody that's a contract fulfillment person versus somebody that's a widget creator, you can absolutely identify what are the most important things in order of importance for them to do. If you can't completely understand that, then say, hey, Hunter, you've been here for 3 years. Walk me through what you do all day long. If you don't know, ask, what exactly do you do all day long? Take nothing away from you, Hunter. What is taking the most amount of your time? What do you find is the most efficient? What's the least efficient? Let's talk about what you're doing. And just that conversation in open, honest setting, not rude, not attacking, but to understand, you might find out that Hunter has done this thing for the last 3 years. That's a complete waste of time. And I don't want him doing that shit anymore. And it takes 10 hours of his week. And I just made him the happiest boy ever to say, stop doing that altogether. I don't know if you know that, but Susie Q over in QC department does that too. We don't need you both doing that, right? So you got to start with what are they doing for sure, and then correcting it, and then measuring it, and then measuring it, and that's the scorecard. Correcting it, measure it, keep measuring it, that's the scorecard, and adjust as needed. And so that same 5 questions that Lisa started with, what's working, what's not, what I add, subtract, and learn, you can do that with an individual. So Hunter, let's change your job duties to 1, 2, and 3. And here's how I'm gonna measure them, 1, 2, and 3. And if I ask you to do too much, just make sure you get 1, 2, and 3 done in order first, because I might ask you to be an assistant / marketing rep / head processor / my event coordinator, and you might not have time to do it all, but get number 1 done first, no matter what, 2, 2nd, 3, 3rd. That's why I hired you. Do you have any questions, Hunter? And that's how you would start that conversation. And if you haven't tracked before, you just put a metric with it, and that's an ongoing conversation. So going back to my 100 leads, right? Hunter's my assistant. How many of these leads, if you call them, do you think that you can convert to pulling credit, Hunter? How many do you think you can do? And he throws out a number of 60. I say, Hunter, I think you're better than that. I know Lisa over there is doing 90. I bet you can at least do 85. Why don't we shoot for 85 moving forward? And I'll train you and help you and overcome objections with you for the next 90 days. But why don't we shoot for 85? How does that sound like to you? And now you create those metrics that you can work off of and have a scorecard based on a weekly basis. That's how you start it.
Love it. And I'm sure people, the bottom line is it's one of those things for everybody. I just want everyone to know, I'm not trying to, lower the bar on everybody, but I mean, it's like everybody is probably going to feel intimidated on how to do this. And there's nothing more important. When Josh brought this up at the beginning of the call, my initial thought was, I don't want to hear about it. I'm not interested in hearing about this. Right. And at the same time, I have
Who needs friends, right?
Yeah. We're friends. But I mean, it's like, I don't want to hear about roles and responsibilities and blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter, I mean, I think Lisa would agree with me. I mean, I have my team coming in tomorrow and we're talking about all of this stuff. And by the way, I've got an incredible team, but you have to go back and clarify what everybody is doing. And the thought of, to me, the accountability for all of us, anybody that has any leadership, whatsoever, it's if you had to call the person, could they explain it back to you, right? I mean, it's just like, it's the teacher student, right? If I'm teaching something, if the team member can repeat it back to me, we're doing our jobs. If the team member cannot repeat it back to you, you're not doing your job, and you're being a horrible leader by them not being able to understand even how they're being measured. So I think as we, I know we actually do have to wrap this up, but I mean, like, as we go into 2025, I just think the combination of taking time on, one, the business planning, two, the roles and the responsibilities, having a theme for your team, for yourself, all of that stuff will end up having an impact on whether or not you're in 2026 looking back saying there was massive growth, or we just did the same thing over and over again. So anyway, I'm going to let Lisa go ahead, and I'm going to have you, and then I'm going to have Josh, and then we're going to get off.
So I only had one comment on Josh's thing with the team. So I have a team. I've had one team member who's worked for me for 15 years, one that's worked for me for 8 years, one that's worked for me for 5 years, and one that we hired 5 months ago. The number one thing that we are working on right now, roles and responsibilities.
Is that right?
Absolutely. It's the number one thing, because anytime you bring somebody new in, one person takes a couple of things off their plate, someone else takes a couple of things off their plate, and you have to kind of reorg how the team functions. And so it's interesting that you talked about how do you start? I think it's how do you review it and continue to make sure that it is efficient and that they know, Hunter, by repeating and doing that kind of stuff and talking about it, because I have a really senior team, and that's the number one thing that we're adjusting right now.
Yeah. I'll tell you,
I'm going to let Josh close it out, but I'm going to just throw this out there too, though. Like, if you want to know how good you are or not, hire someone and see what it's like to train them and what they know and don't know and what your process is for getting them trained. Right. I mean, Lisa, I'm sure you've been under more pressure in the last 8 months or for whatever that timeline is with the new person compared to the people on your team. So anyway, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah. My final thought is something that will make people feel a little better, which is not what I would normally say. Okay. And Nikki Salter and I have been talking about this a lot recently, and it's something called working on your incomplete list, your uncompleted list. Okay. And I think that a lot of times you start new things, maybe it's new coaching or whatever, and you have these 50 items that are still not done that or things you've been working on all year long. And so what I would recommend that you do as a final thought is, here before the end of the year, create a list of all the projects that you started but didn't yet complete. And I got to run a half marathon with some friends recently, my first one ever, by the way. And guess what? I saw lots of people in front of me wearing a shirt. The back of the shirts all say finisher. And we want to be finishers, right? And so if you're that person that this stresses you out, that you're, oh my God, I just gave you 5 more things to do, then before you do that, go back and look at all the things that you started and haven't completed yet. Make a list of that. And then you just got to organize them to which, if done first, will make me the most money or save me the most time, and just knock out one of those before the end of the year. And then one of those the first quarter of next year, and then the next one, and so on. And then this might be something you add on down the road. But I think that when people are sluggish or exhausted, or those words that some of us used, right, from coming out of last year, putting a bow on some of those projects that we are almost done but didn't finish yet might be just the ticket in January to get started on the right foot. And what Hunter said, I can't imagine working on 1,920 hours on a shitty plan and never look at that plan again. So if you took one thing away from this call, one thing that I said, it would be once a week, work on your business, not in your business, and have a scorecard. That would be the only things. So Hunter, your final thoughts?
No, that's it. I wanted you two to give your final thoughts. We're hopeful. Everybody, did you have any final thoughts, Lisa? I kind of thought you went.
My only thought was like giving my 2 cents off of Josh's, dissertation of how to do a scorecard. But I do think final thought would be, whenever you're doing business planning, I think, I said it earlier, who do you have to be in order to hit those goals? Do you have to be a better student? Do you have to be a better leader? Do you have to be a better technician? Do you have to something? Because if you aren't having to be somebody else or change some habits or do something different, you're very likely going to be in the same race that you've been in the last year or the year before. So I think
And I would
that's
also say, and I would also say too, if I am closing it out, share your business plan.
yeah.
Right. I mean, share your business plan with people that you trust and respect and your team. Tell your team that you're a horrible leader if they don't hold you, like they're a horrible employee and you're a horrible leader if you don't hold each other accountable to review this on a weekly, monthly basis to make the improvements. I mean, it's just that simple,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, okay, so everybody,
Yeah.
this is our first one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We do want feedback. Like, I hate to say negative feedback sometimes is better than positive feedback, but if there's things that you liked, didn't like about this, please let us know. It's very important to us. We're not too proud to make changes if changes need to be made. And if there's topics that you want us to cover that we might not have prepped for, let us know and we'll do that too. And Lisa and Josh, love you guys both. And thanks for being on our first Impact Elite Coaching podcast. All right. So everyone take care. Impactful thoughts, I really should say, I guess. And that's it. We'll talk to you next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.